Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, please like and subscribe. If you do like what you're listening to, please inform your friends and family. It is a very imperative time we get back to learning finances and understanding how the world really works so we don't fall for the same tricks. Now, I want to thank those who purchased the book, Cryptoteacher and WO book. Also, those who donated to the Cash App Patreon. Remember, next month I have something special for you. Now, guys, we want to get into Bitcoin. Now, of course, Bitcoin is having a move up. Like I stated, Monday will be moving up on Wednesday. And then also, the fact is that we have Tether took the place of XRP just for a little while. Now, guys, that's all I talk about is stablecoins. That's all I talk about. So all of you should have made money last night and going forward. So, guys, spread this channel like wildfire. It's enough money for everybody. There's no reason to keep it a secret. Until they change things, we can clearly see when the market is going up and going down. You do have to take the time to study, create you a chart for stablecoins. We clearly saw it. It was easy to see. So we also had Justin's son, Tron, sent out a alert last night as far as with the $100 million type. Guys, they just moving all this money over to these stablecoins, sitting on the sidelines. Like I said, they could take Bitcoin to 50,000 if they wanted to overnight. That's how much money they have sitting on the sidelines. Guys, they're printing money off the printing press. Like, come on, guys. We have to get smarter. Now, of course, like I said, basically, Tether moved up, took that XRP third spot. So, guys, that is amazing. Remember where Tether was back in 2017, and it has moved up. So, who's feeding it? The beast, the Fed is feeding it. So we're clearly going to be moving over to this, blockchain, digital currency, financial system. Now, I'm going to speak on the actual videos I'm going to be playing at the end with Jeb and Brad Garlinghouse. Now, as far as with the XRP and, of course, Stellar, you have X Current, which, of course, is for the bigger banks. It's basically the system that we have now in the Fed. They have what they call dealers, brokers. Those are your Goldman Sachs, your Bank of America, your JP Morgans, your Wells Fargo. And then, of course, they send the money to the smaller banks, your credit unions. And they're going to be using, of course, X Current, which does not use XRP. But, of course, X Rapid uses that. And, of course, they have the agreements with MoneyGram and Western Union. MoneyGram, of course, is dying. Western Union is dying. A lot of people don't know that Western Union is 167 years old. Guys, the same hands. Why do you think they have this deal with Ripple? The fact is they want to make sure that these companies make it to the next 100 years. That's all this is about. Why would Ripple be invested in a dying company as MoneyGram? That's the reason why I said, guys, make sure that you're hedging. If you do own XRP, make sure you're hedging and buying MoneyGram stock. Because MoneyGram, of course, is going up while XRP is just sitting there. So basically, Ripple would not be financially successful without selling XRP. Guys, y'all are actually funding this, so make sure that you are investing in the products that they're investing. So make sure you're buying those stocks that Ripple is investing in, because they are investing in real, actual companies, banks. So make sure you're investing in those stocks. So therefore, you are making money, not just with XRP. If you think XRP is going to hit a certain price, make sure you're investing in those stocks that they're actually investing in. Because it looks like to me they're just funding these companies. But if you also look at Stellar, of course, gold is for the I say the East. That's what I call them. The money for the East. You see, that's the reason why I put ACON on there. Africa, South America. So it's like they're both working with the same goal. If you hear it, they both have the protocol is working the same way. You can put stocks, money, bonds, whatever, like a ledger, same way as XRPL. Stellar is basically working the same way. It's just for micropayments for the people. So it's like New World Order is basically have an avenue for the people and then have an avenue for the banks. So guys, it looks like they're working in tandem. It's just separate. to make you look like a competitor. And you'll hear Jeb saying they're going after a whole nother different market than we are, but they're moving in the same direction. So I just want to make sure you think about that. Looks like they're going in the same path, and definitely are not enemies in the whole scale of things. But we also have what they call the Sheriff of Wall Street disclosed $140 million Bitcoin fund that they had. I think they started selling off on May 5th, but they're creating a new fund. But guys, definitely Bitcoin and these digital currencies are definitely rising. Make sure that you are staying focused on the stable coins so we all can, as far as making money. That's the whole goal. Don't get emotionally attached to a crypto. Stay focused on the money. Now, we also have, of course, the Fed. I've been over this hundreds of times. The Fed buying ETFs. Guys, make sure that you're also studying before you invest. Make sure you're doing your homework. Of course, I'm not giving financial advice, not a financial advisor, but make sure that you are doing your homework on these ETFs. That you're going to be investing in them, because of course they're going to pull out. They're going to leave you holding the bag. So make sure that you are, if you're going to be investing in these ETFs, because they are going to go up, but make sure you're doing your homework on it. Now, guys, I'm going to leave you with the videos for Brad and Jeb, so therefore you can listen to them. Now, don't forget that XRP was printed out of thin air, just like the Federal Reserve prints money out of thin air. Stellar was printed out of thin air, not mine. Same way the Federal Reserve, the US dollar, is printed out of thin air. But what do they have to do? They have to get this in the hands of the people. And then basically it creates value that way. So the fact is, as soon as the masses start using it, it creates value. Now, we go to the housing market, cars, what they quote inflation. So guys, when you look at the banks, why did they sell the American dream? You have houses when your grandparents was growing up, $2,000 to $10,000. Now those same houses are $3,000 to $1 million. The reason why is the fact is that you have fractional lending. So if I have a house that's $300,000, now the Federal Reserve can print 9 times that. So when it comes to student loans, your parents may have went to school for $2,000 to a great college. Now it's $20,000 to $100,000. So now the banks can do what? Borrow 9 times that. And the same thing goes with cryptos. The fact is that they were able to create these out of thin air, and now they have value. So you see these guys become billionaires on something that was nothing. It was zero, and on top of it, back then it had no utility. And they became billionaires off something that's not even being used. So I really want y'all to think about that. And always understand that the game is rigged. Think about it. I know a lot of y'all like XRP. Some of you like, XLM. But guys, these guys became billionaires off of something that's not even being used. I just want you to think about that. That is amazing. But guys, that's all I have for you. Don't forget about the books, NWO, Cryptoteacher. Also, your cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance, if you're new to cryptos. Also, your stocks, the bank stocks. Guys, never bet against the banks. We can clearly see this. Your Cobalt, your chip stocks, your gaming. Everybody's sitting at home, investing in those stocks. Your biotech stocks. If you invested in a lot of those biotech stocks, you're making plenty of money. Myrna, when I put in that video, has almost, I think, doubled. So hopefully you looked at those, did your research, you made money off of it. Also, guys, don't forget when people are depressed, anxiety, they're out of work. Of course, I didn't know that extra money ends in July. So that extra, I think it was $600 a week, ends in July. I think it's 31st. So guys, that's going to be $2,400 taken off the table. So that's big. I thought it lasted for the whole time of unemployment, but it doesn't. It only lasts to the 31st. So guys, anxiety, depression, make sure you invest in those alcohol and weed stocks. Y'all have a wonderful day and enjoy the last 2 videos.
It's essentially like a communication layer, an adapter between all these different networks and protocols and currencies so it doesn't matter, if you're at a bank or a mobile money thing, you can still, or you're using one currency or another, these things can all interoperate, right? And that's Stellar's goal, is to make money interoperable, right? Which is different than what Bitcoin or Ethereum or these other things are doing. So that's basically why.
So I definitely would love to hear if there's any audience questions. Please, at home, feel free to ask as well. But I want to make sure I understand that correctly. So Bitcoin's intention is to be global money. And that's a different intention. You were talking about interoperability between payment networks. What does that necessarily mean? You mean like between different fiat banking networks? Do you mean between crypto and fiat? Like, what does it mean to be an interoperability layer for payments?
Yeah, so if you look at the way the payment system works today, like it's very fractured and it doesn't interoperate. Like there's all these different networks. There's like SWIFT, there's SEPA, there's ACH, there's M-Pesa, there's like other mobile money things, and none of these things really talk to each other. And so the idea is that Stellar is kind of an internet for these things where if you're on one payment network, say you have like a Venmo account, now you can send to somebody that has an M-Pesa account, and these things should work seamlessly through this protocol that we've made, which is Stellar, right? And so it connects fiat, it also connects crypto.
Today, from one country to another country, it doesn't necessarily have a token in between, if I'm not mistaken. There is a payment protocol.
Yeah, when you send money today, it usually goes through the dollar, right? So usually, like if you're sending over SWIFT or something like that, if you did that today from Nigeria to Argentina, it would definitely go through the dollar. So
gotcha. That makes sense. Another audience question was, do you think that there's a world where both Ripple and Stellar succeed? Are they competitors going after the same market, or do you not envision them able to coexist?
So, I don't see them as competitive. The world of payments is really, really large, right? Literally everybody sends payments at all scales, right? From like individuals to large corporations. And, maybe at some point at the end of the day we'll compete, but definitely not now. I mean, it seems like they're going after a very different market than what we are.
There's a company called Ripple, and Ripple is focused on solving the exact problem you described. How do we make cross-border payments massively more efficient for remittances, for corporates? We use a digital asset called XRP as part of that flow, and we use XRP because it's 1,000 times faster than Bitcoin transactions and 1,000 times cheaper than a Bitcoin transaction. We think the utility of XRP is such that it's the most efficient digital assets to solve this problem on cross-border payments. So Ripple, the company, is really building on top of this open source ecosystem that I call the XRP ecosystem, and Ripple's building vertically on top of that as a payments company.
Now, you've signed up a lot of real-world clients, big banks as well, and they're using your X-Current products as well, but not necessarily using the XRP token, which has prompted a few people to ask, what's the value of XRP if it's not being used on a wide scale right now? How do you respond to that?
Well, the first problem that Ripple focused on is really engaging with those banks to solve a real-world problem for them. So we've been successful, as you mentioned, signing up over 100 banks using a product we call X-Current. And X-Current allows 2 banks to settle in fiat, but basically in real time. Today that takes days, it's very expensive, and it has a very high error rate, as high as 6%. So that works when there's 2 banks that are working together that already have fiat. If we wanted to go to a third bank where we don't have liquidity, where we don't have a pre-funded account, that's where a product like XRapid comes into play. XRapid uses XRP to fund real-time liquidity. So no longer do I have to pre-fund. There's trillions of dollars parked around the world, pre-funded between banks, between corporates at banks. And if we can make those trillions of dollars more efficient, we make the entire global financial ecosystem more efficient.
And when do you expect that kind of product actually to be rolled out a little bit more? I mean, you've obviously done the initial work with getting some of those banks on board to the X-Current product. So when does XRP begin to become more useful to those institutions?
So we launched XRapid, the product we were just talking about. We launched that as a beta product late Q3, early Q4 last year. We announced our first pilot customers on XRapid in late Q4. We announced 6 more in Q1. And these are big names in the remittance world, names like Western Union and MoneyGram. And